Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Nate, and welcome to 2L Skills. Welcome to the second year of law school. You guys should be excited and happy that you've made it through the grinder. The first year is usually the toughest year. So for this semester, I'm going to be supporting both evidence and constitutional structures. So hopefully we'll have a good time and we'll get through it. How is skills in the second year different than skills from the first year? So one of the differences that we're going to be doing in skills is we're going to be engaging in skills in three different ways. First is going to be the traditional classroom, where you'll come into the class and I'll give a lecture with PowerPoint, or we'll be doing some exam practices that way. And it's just a traditional classroom. The second way we'll be engaging in skills is by produced videos. So I'll be uploading videos and content to the skills course, which you'll see the link below. And that content that you'll be seeing will just be, some tips for constructs, some understanding how to IRAC for evidence, as this video is going to be. And those videos will be produced like this one is, and you'll get to see how things happen for like the past week, frequently asked student questions, those type of things. And then the third way you're going to be able to interact with the course is through a virtual classroom. Now, what happens is I'll be holding skills sessions on the weekend, let's say Sunday afternoon or even Saturday afternoon, where we'll open up what I like to call a virtual classroom. Now, the virtual classroom consists of two components. It'll consist of me sending you out a link, you clicking on that link, and you'll be able to do one of two things. You'll be able to come into the virtual classroom and interact just like any other student would interact. You'll be able to see me like you're seeing me now. I'll be able to see you if you turn your camera on. If you don't, as long as you have a microphone and a computer screen, we'll be able to interact, go over PowerPoint, answer student questions, those type of things. And that'll happen on the weekend. So you won't have to actually come into the school to interact with skills, but you can interact with skills in a virtual way. Last year, when we had a snow day, and during that snow day, we held virtual classes. So just because the snow day happened to be on the day of the review for a midterm or a final. So instead of just saying, well, we're not going to have any review, we did a virtual class. And students actually came into the virtual class from their homes, on their couches, and were able to interact with me directly. We're going to be using different types of software. We may use Zoom, or we may use Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts is pretty much on everyone's phone right now, so you don't have to download any extra content. But Zoom, you'll have to download, and it's a free download, and that will be able to get us more people into the room. Also with virtual classrooms, another piece that I want to make sure it's going to be clear is that if you don't have to actually come into the virtual classroom to interact with me when we're doing a virtual classroom. They'll probably be about an hour to an hour and a half long, but you can actually just watch the broadcast, because each virtual classroom will be recorded instantaneously and broadcast onto YouTube. So if you're watching this channel, you'll get a notification when the broadcast is going to be, and you can watch it and actually text message with me while I'm giving the live presentation. And I'll be looking at the text, at the chat, and answering questions of students. So if you don't want to actually come into the classroom and speak on a microphone or even be on camera, that's 100% fine. You can just watch via YouTube, and you'll see what they call the live chat, and you can interact with me that way, and I'll be able to answer student questions in that way. We'll have a lot of different ways for you to be able to get the information, because as a 2L student, especially an evening student, the issue is about getting the information at a time that's most convenient to you, because I think 8:30s at Monday may not be as a convenient time as maybe Saturdays at 2 o'clock from your own couch. Or you may be one student who may want to come in to the school. So I want to be able to give you that. So that's how skills is going to be different. I'm just massaging everything these first couple of days. So probably next week, Tuesday, everything should be up and running. As you can see, the channel's up and running, and we'll be doing this content once a week or even twice a week with the virtual classrooms, the virtual skill sessions, and the produced videos. So you'll be having a lot of content coming at you. And again, these will just be added benefits so you guys can be able to interact with not only me, but also the material, because that's the most important thing. You being able to interact with the material at the time that's best for you to be able to absorb the information. In the first year of skills, it's really an introduction to lawyering. It's an introduction to what an IRAC is. It's an introduction to what case briefing is. And what about time management, especially for an evening student. These things are critically important, the time management piece particularly. But in 2L, for your second year of law school, I'm not introducing those same concepts again. You know how to IRAC. You know how to case brief, and I believe you know how to manage your time. If you didn't, you wouldn't be here sitting in the 2L classroom. So with that said, 2L is more about refinement. using those same skills that you've learned in 1L, but in a different way so you can be more successful in 2L. If you got straight A's in your first semester and you have a process that works for you and that has been successful, any tips that I'm giving you are only meant to maybe even make your success more efficient or to help you in areas that you think that you need help in. But if you have a system and something that I'm saying doesn't work for you, I would say this. I speak in generalities because I'm trying to introduce topics that help the most amount of people. But at an individual level, you need to do what works best for you. And I hope these tactics and some of the things that I introduced to you do help in your endeavor to be successful in law school. Our video today is going to focus really in on IRAC, and specifically the differences between our classes this semester and how they want IRAC presented to them on an exam. And now, for our second year, Professor Valentine in evidence has given us a couple of examples of what she expects an IRAC to look like for some of the questions. And this is what I want to talk about, and this is where I want to focus our time today on. So when I talk about IRAC, I'm talking about issue, rule, application, conclusion. You guys know this. You guys probably know this cold. You guys know this better than anyone. Again, you've taken multiple tests using the same method. But here in 2L year, the focus isn't going to be on issue, rule, as much as it's going to be on rule explanation and application. Because there is where we get the differences between each course and each professor. Now, I always say this. You're taking not only the course, which is evidence, but you're also taking the professor. So each professor is going to demand certain things that other professors may not demand. That's what I want to bring your attention to early on now in the course, specifically with evidence. The professor wants rule, but she also wants rule explanation. And Professor Valentine made it very clear, I want a rule explanation, but what does that mean? Well, in the context of evidence, she said rule explanation is policy. Why do we have this rule? And that's very important because the why for her on why we have this rule is extremely important. At the end of class on August 29th, Wednesday, August 29th, 2018, Professor Valentine asked everyone to take a piece of paper off the desk. Now, I've looked on Twin and it's not up yet, but that piece of paper, it was a model answer to, I believe, problem number 3. And that model answer was Professor Valentine's understanding of what a good student answer would look like. Now, it was very detailed. This is not what she expected you to do, but this was an idea of what she was looking for. As a skills assignment, I think each student should now take that piece of paper and either highlight or break it down to say, what's the issue? What rule is she applying? What's her rule explanation? And then look at her application through the same lens. Here's the application of it. Here's where she used the rule. Here's where she used the rule explanation. And here's how she concluded. And by breaking it down, it gives you an insight on how Professor Valentine sees how to answer each one of these questions. Like when one comes about, for instance, the appellate standard of review. She specifically has what the issue is, what the rule is, what her rule explanation is, and then she has a detailed analysis on how to make an analysis of that particular issue. She also has it for Rule 401, which is relevant, and she also has it for Rule 403, which is the balancing test. It is critical for your understanding on what Professor Valentine specifically wants you to do on an exam, that you really break this thing down and you analyze this one piece of paper. I think it's 2 pieces of paper, but you really analyze it so you can be in the know on what she wants. For evidence, after you've identified what the issue, the rule explanation, the application, conclusion is, then you should start trying to replicate that in the next assignment. If you're using her template to try to answer those rules, then you'll get used to understanding what the professor wants. So for instance, for assignment 4, assignment 5, assignment 6, replicating what you have now from assignment 3 should give you the leg up. And then when it comes to exam time, you'll have plenty of practice answering a question specifically the way Professor Valentine wants you to answer that question. This is what I mean by the refinement of IRAC, because it's just like when you go to court or when you're practicing in the real world, you're going to have judges who want specific things, and you're going to write for your client for that particular judge. So this is kind of practice for that. You are writing your exam answers for the reader, and your reader is going to be Professor Valentine. Another thing we talked about is how do we take notes in Professor Valentine's class, because a lot of students were saying, well, we don't know what to take down, and it seems to be so much, and we're trying to figure out what's the best way to take notes. Now, the way I used to do it is that since she provided her slides before class, I would just take those slides and actually make my notes on those particular slides. And what it allowed me to do is 2 things. It allowed me to pay more attention to what's going on in class instead of actually typing things down. And her slides did have holes in them. There were slides that had blank spaces, but when you looked at the slide that she presented, it was filled in. And I would take those opportunities to fill that information in by hand. And if I did miss anything, I would then ask Professor Valentine for the full completed slide so I didn't miss a particular rule or a particular understanding. And I think you should do that for not only this class, but you should also do this for constitutional structures because, again, Professor Gomez-Velez also gives you her slides. And it just makes it easier for you to understand what's going on in class. If you're not having to dictate everything, engage with the class and have still completed notes because, again, the professor's giving you the slides before class. If you're handwriting the notes, then I would say you just print out the slides and are able to make notes on the side, which I did a couple of times too when I was taking Professor Valentine's class. Also, I would make sure to be very careful with the wording because a lot of the students last week when we had a little discussion were sloppy with the wording. And with these rules, the wording is very, very important. Like another thing that a lot of students came to me after class and wanted to speak about, how does everything flow? How are we supposed to use these rules? I'm not understanding how to step through these rules. Is that these rules are procedural in the sense of there's a temporal relationship. You have to step through hole A before you get to hole B, before you get to hole C. You start at one point and you end at another point. You start at 401 and you end at 403. And even within the rules, appellate review and whether an objection is preserved, there's a process that has to be. Number one, was there an objection? And if there was it timely and was it specific? And those are two elements that need to be satisfied for the court to apply an abuse of discretion standard rather than a plain error standard. So understanding that there's a formal process and that there are certain hoops that you have to jump through before you make your conclusion is something critical here in the evidence. This temporal relationship is something you'll see time and time again, and you'll see in every class. If something is not relevant, then you wouldn't be doing a 403 analysis. This is going to be great, and I will see you next week in class, and I will see you at this next skill session. So don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit that bell because that bell will notify you when we go live, just in case you miss an email or something like that. And you'll always be in the know, but when I upload a video, let's say an IRAC video or a case briefing video or a video about a rule or something like that, or some clarification from the professor, you will know by hitting that bell and getting these notifications. So again, I will see you next week, and I'm excited, and I hope you're excited too. So I'll see you at Skills next week. This is Nate Brody, and welcome again to 2L year, and welcome to Skills with Nate Brody.